Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see so many of you here today for this webinar to kick off the release of Formate eVo 21. Firstly, a really big thank you for attending today. I know there's lots of pressure on your time, so we really appreciate you making the effort to be with us today. I hope you'll find this session interesting and informative, and hopefully a little bit of light relief from your normal roles. We intend to keep this session fairly short today. We're aiming for about 30 minutes. Depending on how many questions we have, it may run over this a little bit. But I think we'll put a limit of 40 minutes, and if there are more questions, we'll take them and answer them outside of the session. But what I would say is, as we go through, if you have questions, please use the chat facility up in the right hand corner of the window there, and we'll pick those up at the end of the session. Okay, in terms of agenda, we're going to cover some important news today in terms of document genetics and the Formate product in general. We're then going to have a quick look at updates to the product, new features, and try and explain some of the ways in which we'll use these features. We'll have a quick look at how you can upgrade and some of the points to look out for with that upgrade. Then finally, we'll have a quick look at the future roadmap and finish off with your questions. And as I said before, any questions as we go through, please fire those at the chat facility. Oh, and just a quick one. I didn't formally introduce the presenters today, so probably worth covering that quickly. It's myself, Joe Hyde. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director, which most of you probably know who are attending today, and my colleague here, Phil Castle, who is our Technical Director. And I think we're going to run this as a little double act today, so we'll add bits as we go along, and I'll call Phil in probably to answer any of the technical questions at the end.
Afternoon all.
As many of you know, Document Genetics have been involved with distributing and supporting Formate software since 2002, and we've worked very closely with the software authors Trilogic Limited. So much so, much of the development has been driven directly from ourselves and from customer requests. And we've built a client base of over 500 customers with in excess of 2,000 live servers. And a large part of our business at Document Genetics is focused on providing Formate applications and the professional services and the project work around Formate. And over the years, we've considered a number of times, whether we should possibly purchase Trilogic or purchase the IP, the intellectual property of Formate. Well, the opportunity presented itself, and we have now purchased the Formate IP, and we've taken all of the software development in-house. So we're really, really excited by that news. Over the last 12 months, we've been working really hard to update all of our development environments. So that's all of the internal libraries and all of the source code repositories. And we've been working towards the first document genetics release of eVo, which in fact we'd planned for last year. But as you all know, the world has been turned on its head. Hence, it got pushed into the early part of this year. So we're just to recap, really excited by this news. There are a lot of areas we want to take Formate into. We've got more flexibility now in terms of how we can package it and license it. And we're obviously keen to get some of your feedback in terms of how you're using Formate and how you'd like to see the product going in the future. Okay, in terms of new eVo functionality, there's a lot in the new eVo 21 release, and we've sort of cherry-picked some of the major items. So we're going to run through the following. We're going to cover some of the updates. There is a handout available, which we'll make available at the end of this session, that covers all of the major updated items and new functions in eVo 21. We'll also have a quick look at email and look at some of the improvements we've made there. Likewise with barcode reading. PDF has also been a very important area for Formate in terms of creating PDFs and reading PDFs, so extracting data from PDFs. So we're going to have a look at that. And finally, we'll finish off with the web service and the HTTP post command. So these are the major new functionality items we're going to cover. And as we go through, again, do ask questions as we go through.
One of the major things you'll see through the presentation is that we've actually, a lot of the underlying development libraries that Formate is based upon and utilizes for some time have been fairly static, whereas we have decided that we will update those underlying libraries on a much more regular basis than in the past. Previously, there was a conservative view taken that libraries were left alone until new functionality or a fix was required. We're now taking an approach where we want to leverage the work that our suppliers and our supporting software companies are carrying out every day in response to feedback from around the world, and incorporate that in Formate to make it develop at a faster rate. That's just a slight change in strategy which we've been able to bring in over the last year, because we're now paying for this, but also we're the ones making those decisions.
Okay, so we'll have a quick look at the email functionality that's added to eVo 21. So number one, we've updated a lot of the underlying functionality to the email connectors, if you like, by updating the libraries. I mean, one of the things obviously that changes is email connection protocols, and we've got to keep abreast of that so we can connect to, you know, all the email systems out there. One of the things that we've added is something called property HTML to text. And essentially what we're doing here is giving us the ability to take an HTML email and extract the text layer from it. And it's probably worth covering quickly why we'd want to do that. I mean, we're seeing a lot of applications now for Formate that really are what we would call sort of robotic process automation applications, whereby we're monitoring an email queue or an input mechanism. We're picking up typically PDFs, so things like purchase orders coming in on PDF. We're recognizing who they're from, and we're extracting the data from the purchase order. We're passing it and then uploading it to an ERP system. So we're automating that process. But one of the things we have seen is some companies send their orders in as an HTML email, in effect. So we've got this technology in to actually grab that HTML email and extract the text layer. So just to give you a quick example of that, this is an example, you know, a real example of one of our customers' home base. You know, that's an HTML email on the left there, and this function will give you the ability to effectively strip all the HTML tags and give you a straight text file at the end of it. In many ways, what stripping the data from a PDF would give you if it's a text searchable PDF. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Phil.
No, we've also incorporated the function as a standalone function as well to convert a HTML file to extract the plain text. Basically, it's done by rendering the HTML and stripping the tags using industry standard technology.
We've also got a backup lifetime setting for the emails, which prevents them being resubmitted on a server restart. Again, Phil, do you want to explain that in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, I mean, one of the features of eVo is that the emailing is done on its own separate thread. That basically means an email job is submitted completely separately to the production of a PDF or the final output, the final print. If, for example, the eVo server became disconnected from your email server, then obviously the sending of emails would fail. And those jobs would then basically sit in the email queue. They would only be resubmitted upon a server restart. So you have an email that doesn't go out because the email server was offline. You then restart your eVo server 3 weeks later. That email is resubmitted, and obviously you're now online with your email server, so that email now goes out some 3 weeks later. That's clearly not an ideal situation. So what we've now got is a time limit that basically you can set that. So you can say anything over a day old or 5 days old or whatever doesn't get resubmitted. It's simply a safety feature that we've enabled because we see it as an improvement.
We've also added some improvements to the barcode reading functionality. So just to be clear here, Formate's always had the ability to create barcodes that you put on documents, whether it's a delivery note or a pallet label or whatever. But we're talking here about the ability to Formate to read a barcode from a PDF or a TIFF image. And we have a number of customers that use this facility, basically to index documents. It allows them to go up to an MFP with a document with a barcode, scan it. In the background, Formate grabs that document and puts it away, into a document management system, into a workflow, whatever the process is. So basically, we're reading that property of the barcode and doing something with the document, and that's available from a PDF or a TIFF. And one of the things here we've improved really is it now will only scan the first page and look for a barcode in the first page. So that speeds the process up, but also it can be useful as well. We're finding some documents may have barcodes within the document. We've certainly seen that where we're scanning things like phone bills that may have a barcode somewhere else in the document. We've also got a split PDF on barcode change. And basically this means that if you've got a batch of documents that you're scanning and there's a barcode on the first page of every document, every time we see a barcode, it'll split the document. So you end up with discrete documents.
Yeah, just to break in there, of course, scan barcode was introduced about 3 years ago. It's got a reasonable uptake, reasonable number of customers using it. We've taken the opportunity that we're now presented with. The original barcode reading engine and the original implementation was fairly simplistic. The barcode engine was relatively simple, and basically it would scan every page of every document looking for barcodes, and then you could split on those barcodes, leveraging our much greater experience of SME type scanning applications that we've been involved with for many years, such as the Kodak products and some of the other products. We took a number of decisions. So we've replaced the barcode reading engine with a much superior engine that, you know, it represents a significant investment, but it also represents a significant step forward in terms of reliability and ability to read barcodes. Then on top of that, we added the two new features where you can actually say only look at the first page. If you know the barcode you're going to read is only on the first page, then instead of reading all the pages of the document looking for non-existent barcodes, we look at the first page only, or you have the option to look at the first page only. That's a speed and that's a performance enhancement factor when it's applicable. And then split PDF on barcode change, slightly different to how Joe described it. Obviously, we have some documents come in and they have the same barcode on every page. So actually, you need to read the barcode on every page, but the new document comes along when that barcode value changes to the next document. So again, that's just a feature enhancement and is based on our wider experience of scanning solutions that we've probably implemented for quite a lot of you over the years using, you know, other products. It just brings this into a back office application that can go with an MFP.
PDF functionality has always been really important in terms of Formate applications. So again, we've made updates to the underlying PDF libraries to improve performance. One of the interesting things we've added is a PDF redact command. So this gives you the ability to pull up a PDF and effectively do a search and replace on a keyword within that PDF and redact it effectively. And that will redact obviously the visual layer and the text layer behind that as well. We've also got the ability to include hyperlinks within the PDF now. So this is something that a number of customers had requested, the ability, for example, to create something like an invoice, but within that put a hyperlink in there to perhaps backing information or a PDF delivery note or something like that. So again, really useful facility, and we have a method of doing that now. We've also added the ability to add a signature field to a PDF, so you can see the function there. And that kind of reminds me, one of the things that we're currently in the process of doing is a number of little video clips. One of our technical guys has been working through this, really to explain some of these new functions and features. And these can be accessed via our technical blog, I believe, Phil. And the release notes that we're going to give you will have links to these videos as well. But if I show you one quickly, just to show you what they look like, what I would add, they're not designed to be sort of sophisticated marketing videos. There's no sound. It's just really to give you the basic information quickly.
Yeah, I mean, they are on our main, they're hosted on our main website. There will be a blog entry within eVo dashboard that links to them as well.
So in this case, this video is a short video. I think it's 45 seconds.
It's basically showing you about the, it showed you the base PDF. It then shows you where we want to put it. We just run it, and here's the PDF that's been produced, and lo and behold, there's a signature field been put into it. You know, tries to do what it says on the tin. We just maybe some pictures are you know, equal to 1,000 words, as they say.
Okay, and finishing off on the PDF side, we've got an optimize command, really important to keep sizes of PDFs nice and small for obvious reasons. And then lastly, the ability to edit a PDF, convert a TIFF to a PDF, sorry. And lastly, really important, the legacy PDF engine has now been removed from Formate. We'll cover this again before the end of the session, but obviously if you do upgrade and you're using the old legacy PDF engine, it's important that you make use of the new engine and the new commands. Anything to add to that?
Well, we will cover that because it's that's important. Just to say that things like the clickable hyperlink in PDF, yes, we can now do it. There are limitations on how we can do things like that, because obviously, actually, eVo was developed as a print engine. It was for printing things, and therefore you have the PDF is derived from the print mechanism, and therefore there are some limitations. But, you know, we found a way to add a feature that we had been asked for quite a lot.
One of the quite exciting things we've added now is a web service, a receiver web service to Formate. And effectively, this is a sort of self-hosted website that Formate creates, and it permits us to send files to Formate from a remote location using this web service. So a little example would be maybe a company hosts Formate in the cloud, and they have a number of suppliers that could submit documents or data via this web service remotely to the central point. They then process the data. So maybe these are things like customer orders, and then the orders can be passed and input into the back-end ERP system. So we're interested to see how people will use this facility, but it certainly is an interesting avenue to allow people to, you know, remotely push data into Formate.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one model. The original development is based on the fact that eVo has an embedded web server for its own remote monitoring. So we've leveraged that web server to present a web service that can receive a data file of a particular format with an embedded carrier for data. I think we originally went for it in that we would have it as an internal link so that products such as SAP and stuff that can leverage web services, it gives a new way to, you know, send data from SAP and AX and some of these others. It doesn't necessarily have to be an open port that can be seen from outside your organization. I mean, I think it's important to say that as well.
Okay, we've also got an HTTP post command from within Formate. So in other words, Formate is able to, post data to another environment. Again, you know, interesting to see how people use this, but one of the ways we've used it recently is via our InfoForms mobile forms capture solution. And we sometimes use Formate to add a sort of sophisticated PDF template to the data that's been captured from InfoForms. And the way we push that finished document back to InfoForms is via this HTTP post command. But essentially, it could be talking to any number of cloud type applications to push data backwards to another application.
True.
In terms of an upgrade, ideally we do recommend a new install if you're thinking of upgrading to eVo 21. One of the things that have changed, because document genetics are now officially the authors and owners of the Formate software, is all the install locations have changed. And the new locations will sit under our legal entity extra resource in this case. Again, important information here: the legacy PDF creation and editing methods are now replaced. So that goes back to what we said earlier, and you can see the example given there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, obviously for legal reasons, because we now own eVo and the code base, and we have to sign it as our legal entity, so that you don't get lots of warnings, security warnings when you try to install it. And part of that, and partly to comply with Microsoft's view on where things should be installed, it now has to be installed under folders, as Joe said, as extra resource limited rather than Trilogic limited. So when you install V21 as a new install, clearly it will just install in those folders in a very similar manner to it has always. If you're upgrading a version 9 or earlier installation, it will get converted over to extra resource limited. What this means is that you will be left with some legacy Trilogic folders, and version 21 is shipping with a utility you can run to clean up the registry and clean those folders up. Regarding the PDF creation and editing methods, the legacy ones are now removed. The libraries have been removed. The replacement commands have been available for some 3 years, so most development that will have been done over the last couple of years should have been with the new commands. But obviously, if you do have any that are running the old command, they will cease to work, but it's not a big job to change them. But it is something you need to be aware of.
Okay, quick look at the roadmap in terms of some of the things we're working on now and we're planning to do. One of the interesting ones is a browser-based document preview and review interface. And essentially, this is for customers that want to actually effectively look at the output before it's sent. Over the years, we've had a number of customers that have been quite insistent on having this ability. And it's kind of like an email, an out tray, if you like, that the documents get formatted, they get created, and the user can go in, preview that, check that the document is formatted correctly, the data's there, it's what they want to send, and then they can manually release either individually or batches of documents. Typically we've seen this over the years being used for customers sending, for example, invoices to customers, but it isn't limited to that. It could apply to any document. We're also working on a remote print driver. So the idea here is that you could install on a number of remote sites to the Formate server a print driver, and effectively that port isn't aimed directly at a local port, but it's passing that data effectively to a Formate web service that can pick that print job up and process it.
Yeah, I mean, that it will be a local install which will present two printers that are effectively two Formate printers, a plain text printer and an XPS printer. You would choose to print locally, perhaps from your local, your Zero installation or what have you, and then that installation will actually fire the information up to a remote Formate server via the web data receiver that we spoke about a few minutes ago. So it's the next step in leveraging that that technology that we're building into eVo now.
Okay, in a minute we're going to make available some release notes for eVo 21, a little bit more information on how you can use eVo, and finally server requirements. One of the things I would ask, we've got a little poll, just a few questions, if you could answer those before you leave. Probably best to answer the questions or the questionnaire after the question session, which is going to be next. So if anyone's got any questions at this stage, please let us know what they are, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Okay, well, we've had a couple of questions. Thomas has just asked one about training and stuff. Yeah, Thomas, yes, we offer training. We offer information on what we do. We'll come back to you outside this seminar to talk about training. We've also had a question about when will support end for the current version from Daniel, 9.2. Okay, that's an interesting question because there are some changes to support. 9.2 is supported and will continue to be supported for the foreseeable future. Versions before 8.4 support is being retired for it, and we're going to have a rolling 3-year retirement plan, but we'll provide more details of that. But currently, anybody on software that is higher than 8.4, there is no issue. If you're on a version prior to 8.4, basically our first response will be, I'm afraid you need to upgrade because you're on very old software, and I don't, I think that's fairly industry standard these days. Is there a financial incentive to upgrade earlier? Danny, don't quite get that. Feel free to upgrade when 9.2 came out about just over a year ago. Well, actually a little bit longer than a year ago. So it certainly has 18 months left on the can. Certainly you should be on 9.7, Danny. There's no reason not to be. The choice to move to 21 in the first place is down to whether there's any features that intrigue you, really. But it is obviously sensible, and we would recommend people being up to date.
The only thing to add to that, if we do have any for the original Formate platform users on the webinar today, we do have an upgrade policy for them. And we'd definitely like to upgrade those to the latest platform.
Alistair's asking a very personal question, which we'll probably answer offline, Alistair. Probably, yes. but that's about a piece of work that Alistair's working about. So that's a bit specific. Couple more. Has the licensing changed? Fundamentally, no. The licensing remains as it always has been. How does the Formate eVo receiving web service work? That's a good question. Basically, Formate presents a web service, and there is a set format of XML file with an embedded data file in a string 64, base 64 string encoded, standard web stuff. When that file is received, it is saved to a local folder, system folder on the server, which you would then use as an input folder for a perfectly normal Formate task to poll and pick up. Nothing special about it beyond that. We've also been asked, will the Formate server specification remain the same? Absolutely. Obviously, older Windows operating systems are retiring. 2012 doesn't have long to go, for example, but no, the spec is the same for the moment. Should I have a full backup of the server before doing the upgrade? Our experience is that a backup of eVo should be enough, but you should be backing up your Formate servers. They're critical infrastructure for you guys, so you should be backing them up anyway. And that also, just one feature that you'll see in the release notes, you can now script for version 21 of Formate to have a task where it will do its own backup of all its form types, say on a Sunday evening, which you could then back up or send somewhere via a HTTP post command to a remote storage location for safety. So, there are some interesting things you can play with some of the new features. That seems to be about it for questions at the moment. I mean, if anybody's got anything. How long does the version update take? Will there be much interruption to the current system in place? Well, the upgrade to version 21 will take no longer than any normal Formate upgrade. So it will take the same time as to go from 9.2 to 9.7 as it would to go from 9 to 21. Obviously, we are recommending, because of the folder name changes and stuff, slightly more precautions be taken is sensible. But the actual time to do the upgrade is the same. So it could be as little as 5 or 10 minutes. The question is, with the removal of the old legacy PDF commands, you will need to know that they are not in use beforehand. So you will need to review what form types you have, or get us to review the form types you have, because obviously if they're still in place, they will no longer work, and therefore you would have an outage. We have a comment saying that eVo 21 is based around Windows or .NET 4.8. If you haven't got 4.8 on your system, that does take a little while to install and can require a reboot in some circumstances. That said, most people who are applying standard Windows patching will have 4.8. A lot of people now, especially with later operating systems, you can't avoid the patching, so you would mostly have 4.8.
We've got one here from Graham. Do you offer the upgrade for a fixed fee? I'll probably get into trouble with Phil here for agreeing to this, but
no,
subject to understanding what the upgrade requires in terms of moving the form types over if we need to. Then I'm sure we can do that.
Sorry. You're a card, Alistair.
Okay, I think that's probably all we've got time for. So, and I'm conscious we're running a little bit over time. What I would say is, if anyone needs a copy of this presentation, we will make it available afterwards. And I'm just going to make the questionnaires available to you now. So, if you could answer these before you go, that would be appreciated. So thanks very much for coming today. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate the fact that you're committed as a business to Formate software. We're really excited by the latest release, and we look forward to working with you in the years to come.
And one final piece of news: those of you that do your own development, 21 will be available from Monday. It will drop on at 8 o'clock. Well, just after 8 o'clock Monday morning. So, and will be available via dashboard for those of you who want to look at it or do your own thing. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your time, and have a good weekend.